Oh my god. Hello everyone. Sorry I forgot to put everything on. Let me invite our guest. She's a young professional. She has a very hello, 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 hello. Can you hear me, everyone? Sorry, guys. So I was saying, dicevo, è una giovane professionista, a young talent. She's doing a magazine called N Magazine. Let me try again to invite her. She's very young, very, very talented. She has a tremendous, super interesting story, and which she's going to tell herself. And it's very interesting because, first of all, because of her stories, but also because of how much she's into what is called slow fashion in Ireland, in this case, because she's from Ireland. Unable to join. 1 second. Let me see. One second. Okay, I try to invite her again. Stay tuned, people. Stay with me. Do not leave me. Let me try again. Her name is Eve. And here you go.
Hi,
Hello, Eve. How are you?
I'm really good. Thank you so much for the invite.
Oh, thank you for being here with us.
Yeah.
I'm very, very excited about it. And we're going to talk about, so much very interesting topics. But I want people to know who you are, where you're coming from, what's your story, because you have a very interesting story. So tell us everything about you, and then we're going to speak about all the topics that we have on the list.
Yeah. All right. So my name is Aofie Long. It's an Irish name. It's a little bit difficult to pronounce if you're not an Irish speaker.
It is.
Yeah.
It took some time for me.
Yeah, I know this. I know this. I'm aware of this. But yeah, I'm a photographer. I'm a writer. I run an Irish art magazine called N Magazine. I've written about slow fashion and sustainable fashion here in Ireland and across Europe for the last couple of years. And yeah, I'm really passionate about it.
But you started as a doctor. Am I
Yeah.
wrong?
No, you're not wrong. That's correct. Yeah, yeah.
Do you want to tell us what led you switch the path?
Yeah, okay. We can talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about everything. We have 1 hour, one whole hour.
We have the whole hour. Okay.
Yes.
Let's get into it. Yeah. So I trained as a doctor, as a general medical doctor, and I was always really artistic, and I always pursued photography and writing throughout med school. If you have any connection with med school, you'll know that there's a lot of frustrated artists in medical school.
Yes.
There's a lot of very, very talented people who are pursuing a route which is very helpful to people. It's a very meaningful career, but it's not necessarily their passion. My passion is about sharing stories and capturing, artistic moments, I guess.
What brought you closer to this low fashion industry and like the passion to advocate for them?
Yeah. Well, I suppose you could say it was rooted in health. A lot of people's health concerns lead them to examine their lifestyle, the food they eat, the clothes they wear next to their skin. They start to think a little bit about their world and what they're interacting with and how it's affecting their health. And once you start looking at fashion, for instance, you start to realize just how important it is,
Yeah.
first of all.
Yes,
And
very true. Very
what
true.
what a rabbit hole it is when you go down and you start to realize that these clothes are not made in an ethical way which reflect your values, and they're often made with very toxic dyes. They're not made in a sustainable way, which is directly contributing to the decline in health of the people who manufacture the garments, who wear the garments, and the health of the planet in general.
So it is all very much related, like the medical field and the sustainability field.
Yeah, unexpectedly, but yeah.
Unexpectedly, yeah, exactly. It's very, very, I mean, it's not even that surprising because it's a circle, right? So,
Yeah, exactly. And I do have to say about medical school, like it trains you to interview people really, really well. It trains you to listen for the stories and to hear what people are really saying. So, yeah.
and what was your first approach to the magazine? Like, it focused on slow fashion, right? On young artists, and like, do you want to speak about that a little bit?
Yeah, so Ireland is a small country here in the northwest of Europe, and we're quite peripheral to Europe, but we have a thriving arts and culture scene. Unfortunately, it is quite disjointed in a lot of ways. A lot of people don't necessarily know each other, even though it's a small country. And I felt there was a demand for people to learn about the artists, the contemporary artists, not just the well-established artists, but to learn about people who are doing really interesting things currently, and especially people who are producing sustainable fashion within Ireland. You know, we have a tendency in peripheral European countries to look to Central European countries for guidance, but there's a lot of people within our own countries who are doing brilliant things and who are leading the way in terms of sustainable fashion.
And let's talk about a luxury brand, about slow fashion, about sustainability, and about quiet luxury. I would like to, with you, because you know much more than me about this topic, but we can talk about how much luxury kind of supposed to interpret what's sustainability and what's slow fashion. But there are, you know, there is a lot to speak about this. So are luxury brands more sustainable? What do you think?
Yeah, it's a difficult question because we tend to have different definitions of what we mean by luxury, and we have different definitions of what we mean when we say sustainable. So
absolutely,
this is a problem I've run into when reporting on these sorts of stories, because not everyone is on the same page to begin with. So with the sort of luxury brands that you're probably thinking of, they're heritage luxury brands. They're well established. They have a 100-year history. Their marketing and their ethos often reflects, it's made in that country. The people are well paid. It's a family business. But when you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, you start to question whether that's marketing or whether that's the reality. Yeah. And especially as luxury brands get bigger and bigger, or as any brand gets bigger and bigger,
it gets less sustainable.
Yeah, I wish it wasn't the case, but it often is. Unfortunately, when we get down to the reality of it, decisions at large companies are made in terms of revenue. And it's often cheaper to outsource. It makes financial sense on paper, but unfortunately the long-term cost of those decisions is devastating.
And do we want to explain a little bit about this difference, about clarifying a little bit of what quiet luxury is, what fast fashion is, what's the difference in between also quiet luxury and luxury fashion,
sure.
to then compare quiet luxury and sustainable fashion.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say quiet luxury and fast fashion, it's pretty obvious, like the difference. So you go ahead. Your English is better, so I'm gonna let you talk today.
Your English is really good too. Don't worry about it. So the way I would define slow fashion is that it's pieces which are made in a slow and sustainable way. So a lot of thought is given to the sourcing of the material, to the manufacturing of the garment, and it's promoted in an ethical way. That's an important factor of it. This kind of quiet luxury has become a trend. It's sort of American TV shows like Succession and stuff like that.
And also the how you say, the Gwyneth Paltrow thing, that she was really much showing it off. And
and there's a lot of interesting things to look at in the way trends go, as economies contract, as recessions approach in a lot of countries at the moment. People who who have wealth want to be a little bit more reserved about it. And that's
Mm-hmm.
where we see this trend towards quiet luxury, where you're not, covered in brand logos
Mm-hmm.
and trademarks. But for the people in the know, they recognize the quality and those brands. So it's almost like a secret message to people who know that
Which,
you're wearing luxury.
which is not even that new. I mean, it always has been like this. Now
Yeah.
it's just being a trend because of some, as you said, the Succession show, and like the Gwyneth Paltrow situation in like the law situation, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of became a thing now, but it has always been there.
Yeah, it's always existed. And the same for slow fashion. I mean, we've had to invent this new term for it, but that's literally how all our clothes were made about 150 years ago.
It's just more we become aware and more we
Yeah,
give names to things.
yeah.
Uh,
And in reality, fast fashion is the new
it
kid on
is.
the block.
It's
That's
very true.
that's
Oh,
the
wow.
problem.
I wasn't thinking about that.
Yeah,
It
it's
is
true.
actually very true.
It's
Yes.
true. Even though it's become so widely accepted, and we all think of that as the automatic choice for, if you
That's,
need a piece of clothing, it's very new, it's very unsustainable, and it's unlikely to continue,
you
frankly.
think so?
Yeah, yeah. Regulation is probably going to catch up
But
pretty soon.
don't you think it's a little bit contradictory, like the fact that like even big brands, even brands who has an heritage that we were speaking about earlier,
Yeah.
are losing a little bit of the sustainable process,
Mhm.
and saying that the fast fashion is going to disappear. Do you think it's contradictory saying that the luxury brands are going, you know?
Yeah, yeah, they're going in opposite directions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what do you?
yeah. We've talked about this a lot here in Ireland, and there's a term in English which is greenwashing. Have you heard of
Hmm.
this term? Yeah,
From
it's
you, actually.
yeah. There's a reason I talk about it. Yeah, so greenwashing is essentially where in your marketing and in your promotional material, you talk about how sustainable you are, your sustainable practices, oh, we use, sustainable cotton and all that sort of stuff. But then once you actually get into the nuts and bolts of what they're manufacturing, what they're producing, it's completely the opposite to what they're marketing. So
Hmm.
that's what greenwashing is. And it's a huge problem in two ways, I guess you could say, because first of all, they're lying to their consumers.
Yes,
And second of all, they're devaluing the terms. So when a
true.
consumer hears the term sustainable cotton and then finds out it's not true,
So,
it automatically lends this air of doubt to everyone trying to work and promote the slow fashion industry. But on the upside of greenwashing is that it makes people really aware, and it
mhm.
plants that seed that, oh, these big companies are trying to do something, and it leads to the question, why do these big companies see the value in greenwashing? It's
Mhm.
because public perception is changing. People want truly sustainable options, and these companies are taking a very short-term approach in deciding to
What
hop on that
Yeah,
bandwagon
yeah,
in
yeah,
terms
yeah.
of marketing, but they can't actually back it up. So it's led to a massive opportunity for small slow fashion brands who really can back it up, who
Mhm.
can, do a video of their workshop and say, hey, here are the 3 people who make our garments. It's very simple. But there are a lot of problems with that as well.
But do you think there is a lack of interest in of backing this up, or a lack of tools to, comes to?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. I mean, public perception is definitely changing. Like when I sit in
Mhm.
cafes, in various cities across Europe, people are talking about sustainable fashion. Like it's on everybody's mind.
The more you talk about
Yeah,
something, the more you get
that's
to.
true. Yeah.
Yes.
The more you recognize it,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
suppose.
yeah.
But in terms of tools, yeah. I mean, it is challenging to start any sort of a business. To start a manufacturing business and where you're actually shipping products, it's very difficult. It's a difficult thing to do. To work within, your
Mm.
ethics, it's a difficult thing to do. You're going to have, less profit. Things are going to be more expensive, and your client base that you're targeting is going to be smaller. That's the
Of
reality
course.
of it. But if you are committed and you embody your principles, yeah, it can work. It can work.
But do you think slow fashion, quiet luxury, one day will be for everyone, or it's just something that is still going to keep being like an elitarian?
Exclusive. Yeah.
It will be.
Yeah.
It will still.
It depends. It depends how things go economically over the next few years. Like, I would have said that fast fashion was going to last for 10 to 15 years, but then we saw these massive shipping delays, which caused a lot of interest in supply chains, with people asking, like, okay, why is this coming, from other countries when it could be manufactured here? It started that conversation, and a lot more people started thinking about it. The problem is that the current economic, reality for a lot of people is pressuring people, and they're being forced to make choices, simply for everyday survival. And increasingly for them, fast fashion becomes the only option. That's a huge problem. That's a huge problem. And the kind of overconsumption, which is, promoted by the media and everything, that's a huge problem. My hope is that economic systems regulate themselves, shall we say, where we value artisanal products that are made within our own countries, and that manufacturing actually returns to our own countries, so we have that option to support local industry. But I mean, yeah.
And it also actually helps the price to not,
Yeah. And I mean, if it could actually be at the scale within your own country to lower the price, then more and more people would choose that option. But it's getting over that hill of price, which is, the differentiating factor of making it a very niche, exclusive conversation to making it a very widespread conversation. So, yeah.
So what do you think is sustainable in 2023 then? It's like a concept that has to be, it's a work in progress. It's just a concept. It's something that we are going towards. What do you think this is going?
Yeah, I guess I'm going to talk about where I hope it's going.
Okay. Because you told me that at the beginning, the very first time we met, you were much interested in doing something about the sustainability in the luxury field, knowing about artisans. But then I felt you discouraged today when we talked about it a little bit earlier, because you said there's such a huge wall, that it's very difficult to overcome as a little reality. So now, how do you think you're going to approach, and how you're going to help this process?
Yeah, I guess personally, it's about making different choices. It's about acting and embodying those values that you espouse. If you're talking about slow fashion and you need a new item of clothing, well, then only buy slow fashion. That's sort of what I'm doing on a personal level. In terms of my business, my magazine is entirely focused on sustainable artists working within Ireland. So I mean, that's
how you're helping now the process.
Yeah, that on a sort of a more widespread level, and there is a lot of interest emerging in that area, as people align themselves with their values. I think that's really what's going on in the past couple of years, is that there's been a realignment of values. We've been asked to return to the kind of lifestyles we want to live, and what kind of future we want to see.
Does Zen Magazine focus on that a lot?
Yeah. We talk about sustainability a lot, and not in the kind of corporate greenwashing way, but also in terms of sustainability across the business as a whole,
And awareness.
Like they have to be financially sustainable, they have to be physically sustainable. You need to be environmentally friendly. You need to, look after your workers. It's a much more broad interpretation of sustainability than you might see in the traditional media, but there are a lot of artists who are actively pursuing it, and they're doing an excellent job in terms of it as well.
A lot of what? Sorry, I didn't hear.
There's a lot of artists who are doing an excellent job in actually being, truly sustainable in best you can, because you can't be absolutely sustainable, we've gotten to a point where there aren't necessarily sustainable options for everything. That's a trend we have to reverse, but we'll get there.
Very, very hard.
Yeah.
Do we want to say to our followers, like, how and what are the things that can let you understand if a product it is sustainable or not sustainable? It's something that can help everyone. Actually, I am also ignorant about this because it's difficult sometimes not knowing.
Yeah.
Do you want to give some tips about this, or I go ahead, you tell me if it's right? If you have some tips, give it to us, and then I'm gonna follow you with some more.
Okay. I'll try to give you some
if you
tips.
don't say okay.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I guess the first thing is to start looking at the clothing labels, start looking at what the materials are made out of. So start looking for natural
use natural materials.
Yeah. That is probably number one. No one is expecting you to be a fiber expert when you're shopping for a suit, you know, like there is a limit to what you know. You're not going to know where these raw materials necessarily come from. You're not necessarily going to understand the chain of production, but if they're natural fibers,
I put myself in line for that.
yeah. And I mean, I've researched this for years, and you know, it's still unclear to me in a lot of ways where a lot of these materials come from, because they're not transparent about the chain of production. But in a simple way, and I suppose as consumers, you're looking for the best quality. It's okay. I know how hot it is. Yeah, I guess as a consumer, you're looking for the most beautiful and most elegant version of clothing that you can find, and they're inevitably going to be natural fibers anyways, you know, so start looking for wool,
natural, organic, recycled materials.
Yeah, well, recycling is a tricky one. A lot of that is greenwashing, a lot of that is nonsense.
Really?
Yeah, unfortunately, but it's better than nothing. We'll give them some credit. But yeah, start looking for cotton, linen, you know, various kinds of wool. There's a lot of ethical concerns that, you know, some people who are vegan, for instance, have about wool. But at the end of the day, you know, it's an organic substance. It degrades, and, you know, it's a beautiful fiber.
Another important thing that I think we both focus on is, like, as we already mentioned, is to focus on our small artisans, small realities that helps doing that. So also, like, look and source for locally products.
Exactly.
And because there are bunch of, I don't know in Ireland, but you I think you can confirm there are so many, and in Italy you know even better than as I do.
Yeah.
There are so many small artisans that work backstage and no one knows them.
Exactly.
That they really themselves bring an heritage forward.
For sure.
And
definitely look into that. You know, I think the kind of mindset of fast fashion has entered, you know, it's kind of pervasive, whereas consumers, we want things quickly, we want things immediately, we just want to press a button and it appears at our door. But in the process of that, you know, incredible ease of sourcing a product, in a way you're missing out on the adventure of finding a piece that you love. And if you can actually, I guess, have the luxury of investing the time to research a piece which is really meaningful to you, and maybe go to the shop if it exists, or meet the maker.
No, they don't have time to invest for this. They just have to call BMEN.
That's true.
BMEN does that job for them.
Yes. You see, you can save them so much time, but it's important, like that sort of network, and finding people who are in that world, who will tell you the truth about the origin of these products, and who actually have long-standing relationships with these artisans. That is invaluable as a consumer, or, you know,
I agree,
as someone who is looking for really beautiful and sustainable fashion, because it's a giant world. You know, you're not going to be expected to know everything about it, and nor should you. There are experts who know all about this. There are magazines you can read, and there are beautiful style consultants you can consult, you know, like.
And magazine BMEN I consulted.
Exactly. You know, you can use the resources you have to, I guess, invest, and you're going to be rewarded with pieces which mean a lot to you, and they're going to,
which last more, which last longer.
For sure, they last longer, and they speak volumes about the kind of person who wears them. You know, they're someone who cares. They're embodying their values, and they're displaying leadership in a way that a lot of people aren't. You know, when even subconsciously, people are going to pick up on that. You know, when you're wearing pieces which you love, there is a confidence. There is a, it's different.
There is a whole thing that there is a lots of advantage regarding this topic.
Yeah.
So let's say also like look for certifications in within the garments. It could help to make sure that you're getting something sustainable.
Yeah.
And it's super easy. I mean, you just have to see the Global Organic Textile,
Absolutely. Yeah.
how you say, standard?
Yeah.
GOTS, I think.
Goths, yeah, they do fantastic work, and if you see that, definitely try to support them. You know.
Can I tell you something? I'm fascinated on how you speak, to be honest. I just love the way you speak. I love it.
Well,
Guys, I don't know if our follower are on my same page, but I just love it.
I need to do more lives then.
What?
I need to do more lives then.
We will do it together if you want.
Yeah. Let's talk more about this. Yeah.
Let's do a plan for from October on.
Yeah. Let's take the rest of the summer off. You know?
Exactly. So just to like, because as you say, the more you repeat things, the more people trying to understand, and kind of it's a sponge, right? It's just like you say things and you
absorb them.
I don't absorb them. So my word didn't come out. I want for people to have very much clear the difference again, but very much in a easy way, about quiet luxury and luxury fashion, quiet luxury, sustainable fashion, and slow fashion. So pretty much, as we were speaking, sustainable fashion is an eco fashion system, right?
Yeah. It's a big term. It's a big umbrella term.
Do we want to analyze each term singularly?
Yeah, sure. So sustainable fashion is sort of a global expression for clothing, which is, you know, it's made in the most sustainable ways. Supposedly, we don't have set definitions for this, but you know, things which you might see are like recycled fibers, you know, the option to return your clothing after you're done with it. There might be, you know, various, you know, social enterprises involved in the manufacturing chain. So, you know, they might tell you a little bit about their workers, and there might be a little bit more transparency in
it's
that
like
regard.
a system for preserving the deteriorating environment.
Yeah. And it's based on environmentalism, really. You know, that is the main goal of it. Unfortunately, sustainable fashion does not necessarily reflect that they look after their workers.
Yes, that's true. You know, sustainable fashion doesn't?
Not necessarily, you know, like
okay.
You might assume it,
yes,
but not necessarily. Yeah. That's
I assumed it. It was a mistake, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's easily made, and there's a lot of confusion over these terms, you know. Like
and slow fashion then is just a consequence of the sustainability system.
Yeah, well,
sort of.
Yeah, sort of. I think slow fashion is, yeah.
It's like a movement that provide clothes in a sustainable manner.
In a truly sustainable and truly transparent manner. So I think the hallmark of slow fashion is you know exactly where they're manufactured.
So it also does include
localism.
That where it comes from, locals, but where it comes from, there is the right environment.
Yeah,
for the
exactly.
workers.
There's transparency, you know, along the chain. Like with slow fashion brands I can think of, like they are super transparent about their education, about their garment workers' pay. They're really transparent about where the fibers and where the cloth is sourced from. They're transparent about where the scraps and the waste goes from the process of clothing production. They're transparent about their packaging. You know, maybe they have some kind of biodegradable packaging. They're transparent about, you know, even down to the clothing labels they use. Like, and that's one of the reasons that slow fashion brands are often quite small and led by, you know, one or two founders, because they're, you know, their brands reflect the passion and ethics of one or two people. But the big problem once it becomes, you know, a giant company.
Yeah.
That's very difficult. That's very difficult to scale, you know.
And it's also difficult to keep that integrity then, and that is why I guess we arrived here.
Yeah, I mean, I live in hope, and it's definitely not impossible to run large companies with an ethos of integrity, you know, and I think that points to maybe a lot of our cynicism about capitalism and stuff is that we kind of expect large companies to have no integrity.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a problem, you know.
Yeah.
So,
I feel there are few companies nowadays that keep their integrity. I think whoever did not have this system so far of sustainability of luxury brands are trying, as you say, with the greenwashing to get there.
yeah.
And like contrary, the big brands, luxury brands who actually really followed a sustainable process, environment,
Yeah.
and slow fashion system are the ones who are doing like flipping because the marketing is what it is, and they cannot keep up with the expenses of nowadays.
It's true, but maybe it's scant comfort in terms of your balance sheet. But the fact is that the people in those companies who are embodying their ethics, they're industry leaders. They're at the cutting edge of where the entire industry is going, and everyone is following in their wake. That's the reality of it,
So
you
do you
know?
think they all going to compromise, I guess, between these two worlds?
It's an interesting
Ah.
question. I don't know. There's always going to be some kind of compromise, you know, like
Yeah.
I think a lot of the slow fashion movement, it almost becomes religious in a sense, you know, where people take it so seriously they don't necessarily allow for the realities of things, you know. But look, all we can do is do the best we can. There are a lot of options which are not 100% sustainable, but which are a lot better for the environment and for the people involved in the production. And I would highly suggest people opt for those.
Do you know some of those to speak about?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to point out big international companies, you know, which are leading the way and stuff. But unfortunately, I haven't done enough research personally to vouch
Okay.
for the production chain of any of these companies, you know, large brand name companies. But yeah, obviously here in Ireland, you know, there's a lot of quite small scale luxury brands which are producing often tailored garments. Ireland has a huge knitwear industry, and you know, there's a lot of people who are really trying to lead the way. And I guess, you know, your audience is not based in Ireland, but I guess, you know, as an international audience that are perhaps from Italy, your best bet is to approach and start looking at artisanal brands, because that's probably your best guarantee
Yeah,
that they are
I mean,
sustainable.
yeah, BMEN focus a lot on huge, I mean, super small realities,
Yeah.
and artisans. They're kind of a secret for
Mhm.
the regular people,
Yeah.
for their choice, but also again to follow this kind of system, more sustainable
Yeah.
system.
So
I
important that we promote them as well, you know, because these people who are passionate about it, these remaining artisans and these remaining, you know, brands which embody their values of true sustainability, they they need promotion. They need help.
Yeah, and
They're not receiving the sort of support which you would imagine they would via government sources, and they're
absolutely.
relying on a very small niche clientele which needs to be expanded. And I think the wider, you know, audience in terms of yeah, our country's populations, they're becoming a lot more receptive to these stories, because they're realizing they want to live in a world where their clothing is good for them, good for the planet, and they want to support their local economies and their local artists. It's extremely important that we continue to promote these because people are looking for them.
Absolutely. Like again, it is one of the focus of BMEN, and you can tell the different. First of all, they have such a fascinating stories. Like speaking to them is like I will speak to them for hours. It's just like, and the passion that they put in it is just like, even when you buy something from them, whatever the price tag it is, you know that you're buying not just the product, but something else.
Exactly.
So
It's a completely different purchasing
approach,
experience. Yeah,
yeah.
and approach. And of course, you're not just getting a product which will last for much longer and reflect your values,
It's a
but
whole
you're
story.
actually, yeah, you're actually, you're investing in a story, you're investing in the kind of future you want to see. And that's truly meaningful.
Absolutely. So about these, like, unfortunately, we live in a world of fast fashion. My clients are not, thank God. I mean, it's a high profile, so I do not go there usually. And again, the focus is providing a support for these small realities.
Yeah.
But in the case of low luxury in a fast fashion world, like for example, a fast fashion reality like Zara, who we all know it really started from slow prices. Now starting to have the wish to greenwashing ourselves, letting us think that they can be also slow fashion and sustainable.
Yeah.
What do you think about this regard?
It's kind of funny. It's kind of funny. The evolution of the Zara brand is very interesting to watch. You know, like they started out as another fast fashion option. The quality has steadily risen, and
Yeah.
alongside, like, I mean, some of their stuff isn't bad. But they're unfortunately not very transparent about their processes.
Yeah.
That's the problem, and their prices are still too low for it to be truly sustainable, as sustainable as their marketing suggests. That's the reality of it. Like a wool coat from H&M, which costs 60 euros, which they claim is sustainable and ethical and made in Italy. It's highly unlikely.
Yes.
Highly unlikely.
So do you think is slow fashion the new luxury? Is the slow fashion they always been there? Do you think it's something, what do you think about slow fashion today?
Yeah.
Is it the new luxury?
Yeah,
Or
I think it is. I think it is because a lot of the luxury brands have not been immune to this move towards fast fashion. A lot of them have sold out essentially, and they've made their brands much less meaningful for people who truly value sustainability and ethics. So that means there's a clientele who used to shop at these heritage luxury brands who are searching for truly sustainable luxury items. And that means
but
that
let's
audience is going to go towards slow fashion.
but let's not confuse that luxury brand not necessarily are sustainable.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So um do you think how do you think someone will be able to recognize it? I mean, we said that before a little bit, but at the end of the day, yes, you can see the tag, but someone just go in a luxury brand and think, oh, I know that I'm buying quality. I know that I'm buying sustainable. I know that I'm buying rightfully work products.
Yeah. Well, I
Is it?
guess it comes down to what you value ultimately, and it is the consumer's choice. And I think this is where we forget, maybe how much power consumers have. Because once consumers start to change their mind, and a lie can never be truly hidden. The truth will eventually tumble out about brands which are actively greenwashing. And even if they, retain a loyal audience who love the brand and they love the logos and that is part of their identity, that's okay, because it's going to free up an entire audience of people who are actively seeking for clothing which reflects their values. And they're going to navigate towards slow fashion. I can absolutely guarantee you. The only question is whether small local sustainable artisans can last long enough for that switch in public opinion. That's the only question.
But the thing is that they can't last if sustainability is going to be, a thing, or slow fashion is going to get bigger, because as we say, there is no support system that can support that.
Well, there is a support system of consumers and clients who know and appreciate these brands. That is the support system for these brands. In terms of, yeah.
Which maybe is too small right now then.
Well, it can always get bigger.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Yeah, and I suppose that's sort of the goal of promotion of these sorts of businesses. And, you know, depending on how much of a capitalist you are, you know, ideally businesses, independent businesses should be able to thrive on their own. They shouldn't be dependent on government support. But where the inequality comes in is that these, you know, very large companies, which are fast fashion giants, for instance, they're so big, they manage to take advantage of tax breaks. They manage to take advantage of importing with very little duty. Take Amazon, for instance, you know, they're big enough to provide free shipping and avoid, you know, sort of taxes which people pay on entry for smaller brands, simply because Amazon is so big. So there is, you know, a lot of those big companies have unfair advantages due to their size. But we can't lose sight of how powerful it is when individuals make different choices with the kind of clothing they wear on a regular basis. And I see it with a lot of people I know who are my age and younger, that even if, you know, when they're in college, for instance, they can't necessarily afford luxury slow fashion, they're actively making choices to buy vintage clothing, to buy secondhand clothing, and they actively plan to pursue, you know, much more sustainable clothing options once they're, you know, earning and, you know, successful in their own right. And that means there's a massive audience and wave of people who are coming up in the next couple of years who will be investing in more sustainable clothing options.
You're very optimistic.
Yeah, yes and no.
But yes,
No. Yeah,
I
I
mean,
know
it's
what
a
you
good
mean.
thing.
But you have to be optimistic.
Absolutely. I mean, we are the only
Exactly.
one right now who can make the difference. So yes,
It's
there has to be.
it's really important. I mean, you know, it's not just the purchasing power of the individual, but it's the mindset of the individual as well, you know? And I don't mean that in an individualistic sort of way. I mean that in a very cohesive and community-centered sort of way, that in a community every individual matters. And I think we're going to find that even more over the next few years, where you can see it with labor shortages and stuff across Europe and the States, where individual people are becoming more valuable. I mean, you know, we're facing, you know, reducing populations in the West, reducing numbers of people who are in the workforce, and it's about to become very important, the choices you make.
And for that, you can call the man who's going to help you do that and read and magazine who actually. Can you tell us more about a magazine? What are the plans? What are your projects with it, and where is going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. So I launched N Magazine in January of this year, and it really filled a space which wasn't being filled here in Ireland. So I like to view N Magazine as Ireland's new art magazine, and within a month we were in the top art gallery store in Ireland. You know, we've had a lot of success in reaching people who truly care about their communities, who are looking actively for young artists to support and invest in. They're looking for more sustainable options, and you know, they want to be part of this emerging culture, because whether you like it or not, you know, there is a shift in generations coming. There is a change in culture. Well, the media is attempting to drive this change in culture a certain way. You know, advertising, you know, seeks to push people in a certain direction.
Yes.
There is a counterculture emerging of people who truly value artists, and that's the audience we cater for. So I have a very broad definition of what an artist is, you know, and we could talk about that at another time. But it's, yeah, we cover all sorts of artists who work in a slow and sustainable way, and that is the key link, that this new generation of artists, they're truly embodied in the work they do. They give back to their communities. They're often working with natural materials which are sourced locally, be they sculptors, painters, potters, you know, clothing designers, whatever they are. There's a common link between these artists. There's a commonality between them, and they make for absolutely fascinating interviews because they offer
Their stories.
their stories, but their stories offer a different future. And that's what's
Absolutely.
so important about this topic, is not, you know, necessarily that we all cloak ourselves in luxury as the world goes up in flames. The important thing is that we have that optimism. We are being
That's
offered
very true.
a different option, and I think we have to look towards artists for that creativity in how we want our societies to look. And I mean, it's a radical idea if you think about it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think for us as young people, as young
Yeah.
women, we are doing a little part of it, you know, like you doing the End magazine, trying
Yeah.
to make broad a concept that it has to be a lifestyle.
Mhm.
Me with my clients, even if they're high profile, I'm still trying to maintain something more valuable for them, right? Uh,
Absolutely. And perhaps your job is more important because you're in essence, a bridge between an
mhm.
older, wealthier generation and
And
a
a younger, yes,
younger emerging artisans and entrepreneurs who, and this bridge is really important because we often see when people try to form communities that they form communities of people who are very similar to each other. And you see
hmm
this very frequently, but for communities to truly thrive, we need all sorts of different people.
like a
We
united,
need,
yeah.
we need people of different ages, different backgrounds, different, you know, economic statuses, you know, we need a wide variety of people. And that's one of the most powerful things about art and about ethics, is that it can unite people
Absolutely.
who are very different. And that, in a way, is what's so interesting about slow fashion, for instance, is that there's a commonality between the people who make it and the people who appreciate it.
Very
Yeah,
true.
and it's
That's
really
a very,
important.
very beautiful observation that you're making because I think um, maybe because I'm not that artist, but I do am a lot fascinated by that culture, that lifestyle, that creativity.
Mm,
Uh, that's maybe why I'm so in love with this affirmation. But um, I think even if you're not interested and you don't have that commonality that you're speaking of with the artist, you can grow it
yeah,
just by speaking with them for once.
absolutely. And
Like,
even one conversation can spark that interest. But more importantly, I'd push back, you know, maybe in a psychological way or even on a personal level. I mean, I know you fairly well. I think you're very artistic. I think a lot of people are very artistic. You know, like our societies, and I know this because I've personally experienced it, our societies for the last 100 years have told us that artists weren't valued, and that,
mm-hmm,
you know, it was far more valuable if you worked for someone else, if you got, you know, this steady job, if you know, contributed to your community in a financial sense, but not
mm-hmm.
necessarily an artistic sense. But that's shifting. And even if you are not, you know, producing a creative piece of work, thinking creatively is so important, and you're going to see that over the next few years. And that's one of the reasons I like to talk to artists so much, is because they think outside the box. And even if
Absolutely.
they don't see it themselves, it makes them excellent people to know and excellent people to start businesses with and build communities with, because they can think creatively. They're not caught in this linear stream of thought. And I guess, you know, in sort of a philosophical way, to talk about slow fashion, it's going to require really creative solutions. It's a huge
Yes,
problem. We're going to have to get really creative. It's not actually, you know, legitimate to suggest we're all going to weave our own scarves. It's not going to happen. We
absolutely.
need to get really creative about the solutions we're going to come up with. We have to look to artists and young people to provide those solutions. We can't look to the people who've actually created these problems to begin with, who think in routinized, so-called logical ways, which end up devastating the environment.
That's a tremendous speech, by the way. I'm gonna register. I mean, this is all registered. I'm so happy that I'm gonna keep it for myself too, and to share with the people,
Yeah.
because this awareness, this speech, and these topics are. I think yes, there is a greenwashing system, but not even enough.
No.
to let people understand it, and
Mhm.
you know, starting to and again, sometimes you're very optimistic, and you're right. I think all of us supposed to be very optimistic, even myself, that I'm doing a job who does provide support to these
Yeah.
realities.
Yeah.
I feel I'm not doing like so much, but it is a start.
Yeah.
and
Me too.
and
Me too. Yeah.
and from them I get the optimism that I need
Mm.
to, you know, so it's something
Yeah.
that I think.
It's a long journey, and it's one which it requires a lot of momentum to get started, but every small win, you know, builds on top of the last one. You know, like that's something I didn't realize when I started the magazine, is that you think each step you take is like, you know, a new leap, but it's not. You're constantly gaining momentum, and the next yes is always easier to get. And I think that's
Yeah,
an important lesson you can take from building a business to apply to changing public perception, is that once you get that momentum going, the movement will simply snowball, you know?
yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
You said that I mean, I focus on Italian suppliers,
Mm,
but you started to focus mainly on Irish suppliers,
mm,
but you kind of brought the idea to know suppliers even from abroad, right? So you came to Italy, you were very fascinated by the
yeah.
possibility and the chance to meet artisans there, even from abroad, or artists, or in
Yeah.
the list. But do you think it's something that M Magazine is going to take care of in the future? Just a broader
Yeah.
um,
Yeah,
list?
that's definitely the goal. I mean, definitely initially we focused on Ireland and Irish artists in terms of the logistics of running a magazine, of doing interviews, of having a local audience. It's really powerful to focus on artists within a small locality. But I mean, the vision of where N Magazine is going, like, sure, I want to profile Irish artists, but I want to expand this
Mm-hmm.
into a global movement. Does that require, you know, N magazines in different countries to profile artists within those countries? Perhaps. Does it require N magazine to be a singular magazine covering artists from around the world? That would also be extremely powerful. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure how best to pursue this, but I'm actively thinking about it, because this is such an important topic that we need to, you know, I guess approach globally. That, you know,
Absolutely.
yeah.
But as you say, when you get the momentum and you know where to go, it's gonna be
Mm.
a snowball so of
Yeah.
effect.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and we're already looking at, you know, stockists in other countries, translating magazines, you know, like there's a lot to think about in the terms of the practical side of actually getting this message out to people. But,
Yes.
you know, obviously talking to people like you know, is a big step, because we need to get this message out.
Listen, Eve, I think people are too hot lately because they are abandoning us little by little. So
It's okay. They'll
maybe
watch it later. Don't worry about it.
they had to watch it later. It's gonna be on YouTube, by the way, on BMEN Talk YouTube channel. So and on BMEN Style website.
Mhm.
So I will tag you on all of those. But I
Yeah.
think we might best take this topic or some other topics, plan
Mhm.
something for the future.
Absolutely.
And yeah, thank you for the talk, though.
You are so welcome. Anytime, anytime. My pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed it a little bit. It was, I mean, I always have so much. I'm really fascinated speaking to you. You know that you're a young professional, and I admire all the perseveration that you put into it.
Thank you.
Uh, and I relate to
Mhm.
it. So yeah, let's keep in touch for in the future lives.
Mm.
And thank you for your point of view on slow fashion, quiet luxury, and sustainability. I wanted to remember, I wanted to speak also with another guest today that she
Mm.
got a sustainability project, but she couldn't be here, but maybe next time.
Mhm.
And yeah, let's keep in touch to follow up with our progresses and see
Absolutely.
how it goes.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the chance to speak to your audience. I wish you the very best of luck. You're doing a really important job, and yeah,
Thank you, Eve. And you too. I mean, and magazine is
yeah,
people, you had to check it out.
yeah. It's beautiful.
Yes, it is beautiful. So check it out, and she's doing a tremendous job. So the topics are very, very important.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I wish you a great, great night, and I'll see you post-summer.
See you then.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.